Welcome to Three Questions, where critical thinking is king, and my opinions and research are only here to support your learning and hopefully deeper understanding. Hey, I'm your host, Meghann, and I am so honored you clicked on 3 questions today so we can talk about trauma and stress with 2 women I am so excited to meet for the first time and to introduce you all to the wonderful Jessie and Jojo. I'm going to call them J and J because I love a nickname. So now you have a nickname from me, even though we've only met 5 minutes ago. So welcome, Jessie and Jojo.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And just so you guys know, these lovely ladies are coming all the way from Denmark. So if we have some internet glitches or delays, we're going to work through that because Denmark is a little far away from New Jersey. And you know, internet, it happens. So these 2 women have done so much in their career. So what I always like to do, guys, is I'm putting their full bio in the show notes because an introduction doesn't do them justice. Some things that I found very interesting and wanted to point out. They've both worked in ballet and with the military as both movement educators, helping both dancers and people military who have had some trauma or limb loss regain movement, find movement solutions. And it just kind of sits really well with kind of the work I do with neurological conditions. So I'm just so honored to have you guys here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're really
And this is their first podcast. So they're a little nervous, but we'll break you in gently. Woo! All right?
Hey.
Yes. So another really important thing is Jessie and Jojo were contributors in the Pilates Applications for Health Conditions book. I always have to look at the title because I flub it up. And their chapter was Pilates for Trauma related to stress and anxiety. So I'm also going to put the link to the book with a 15% off coupon so you can check out their chapter and the other chapters. So I'm yapping enough. Let's get right into question 1, guys. In your chapter and in your work, you guys use movement as a tool. And the 3 of us could discuss movement as a tool for trauma and stress for probably 7 days, maybe longer. But I want the audience to critically think a little bit. So, question 1 is, do you have a question that you like to ask in your sessions to establish safety or trust with people you're working with? Jessie, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I think definitely, and I'm not answering directly the question right now, but for me...
Oh, I don't love a direct answer. Get in the gray area. No. I love it.
We'll work around it. So, generally, safety first, right? So when you have a client that comes with high stress and anxiety, and it can be related to a trauma that they've had, but it could also be an illness, or it could be a psychological or physical trauma, right? It could have, could be grounded in many things. They're going to need to feel safe, right? So we really take great care to create a good environment, first of all, right? How is the lighting? How is our tone of voice? How is there too much sound? Do we have music? Is it nice to have music or not? So we kind of lay the foundation, first of all, and then comes a conversation, right? If we see that client for the first time, right? Then, it's an interesting question. It's a big question. If there is one thing.
Let me clarify a little. So I love what you talked about, the environment and setting up the environment. And I think a lot of us assume the environment that determines safety. And I love how you pointed out, well, we could have music or not music. So maybe it's not a question you ask, an observation you take. And some of this is really intuitive of us as teachers. And maybe you can share your intuition so the listeners can be like, oh my God, I do that too. Or maybe I can tap in. So maybe it's not a direct verbal question. How do you know how to set up that environment?
I think it's also a question of tapping into people's resources. So it's a conversation, it's a dance, it's a meeting someone where they are, having them being seen and being heard and being met exactly where they are on the day, and trying to tune in to what their resources are. I mean, obviously, we're working with, we began this work 15 years ago, working with Danish veterans coming home from Afghanistan, and we ploughed in as a general sort of a national effort to help rehabilitate these soldiers. And we came from ballet backgrounds, from movement teacher backgrounds. So we came in with the physical. That was what we wanted to, where we planned to meet them. And suddenly here's these young soldiers who have been blown up. They're missing limbs. They have life-changing injuries. And coming at them with the physical, we quite quickly realized you can't get blown up and not have some kind of psychological repercussions. So we could have all the fancy pants exercises in the world that could help them walk better, but are they going to fulfill their potential just with a movement approach? And we were met with people, the first thing you're going to see when you meet someone is their demeanor. And we were being met with these incredible young men who were either very much stuck in a high alert, this rigidity, this, their training is about switching off their emotions. And here they are post-war, post-injury, and they're on very high alert. And then you can meet someone else that's completely dissociated and in freeze and collapse mode. And we started just to get curious of, is there another way to hack into their nervous system somehow? Is there something else we can be doing to meet them where they are? And this was really the journey of starting to look into resources, starting to look into other ways, another layer of learning. And I think that began with us coming across actually Marie-Jose Bloom's Smart Spine system, the heat system, right? That was when we were in the States. And suddenly we were working with a young soldier who was in this very high alert. His fascia was sticky and he was having trouble breathing. Everything was tight, everything was restricted. And that just sends those signals to the central nervous system of just something's not right. It's creating stress, it's creating anxiety. And we started to play around with this heat system that was staying true to our scope of practice. We were still moving, somatic approach, but suddenly we saw a softening, and suddenly we saw some changes in the glide of his movement, the freedom, the safety, the relaxation. And suddenly we were like, there's something here that we've just created a tool for this guy. It's like a reset button. And we started to use heat as a kind of a grounding kit for him. And I think when you start to play around with, back to this sort of original question, when you're meeting someone, it starts when they walk through the door. How are they holding themselves? What is their, and starting that conversation, you commented about music, sound. We had a soldier who found Metallica the most relaxing music to listen to, which was quite.
And I love that, because that wouldn't be the assumption. People would say, oh, don't have heavy metal, have quiet and peaceful. And for someone like myself and probably this soldier, that annoys me more. Whenever I'm at a spa,
Exactly.
I say, can you please turn off that music in this room? That doesn't relax me.
Yeah, exactly.
So circle back to the question, the words I'm hearing is setting up the environment, but changing the environment. So guys, what we talk about from sensory perspective is now don't go and just put heat on everybody, right? But that change in the sensory environment through the skin, the muscles, can really change the environment. And I'm poking you a little further, because what you might think isn't groundbreaking to you is. So it's, what's that first thing when somebody comes in? What's the question you ask? Do you look at their eyes, their feet? Is it the temperature they're giving off? It's probably different for each person. But what's your intuition? Give the audience something so they don't feel silly with their things. Got any weird things?
I think a number one thing we do is we watch them walk. That's the first way to gather information from people, would you say?
Yeah. I watch how they move, and then I ask how they are today. because
I
it
love
could be a
that
different
today.
day tomorrow, right? So how are you today? And then they might say, that they're not having a great day, right? Or maybe they were like, well, it's okay. But then I sort of prod a little bit, and what does okay mean, right? So, and that could also be a big question, right? It also depends if they are pain, whether they're in pain or because then often we will have like a pain scale, right? We will also sort of grade their pain and ask, well, in what way, or on the scale of 0 to 10, how is your pain today? We don't always do that. Again, it's a real individual evaluation because we don't want everybody to focus on their pain. So,
Yeah. And do
but
you
it
guys
can
have
be
an
very aggressive.
intake you give prior to sessions?
Yes, we do. We do have intake. We don't. We've had research with the Danish With the Warrior project all along with the 15 years, where we have had intake forms where we fill in pain and fatigue, and we do testing before and at baseline and mid through the
Program. Yeah.
program, and then at the end. And we do both physical testing, which will be gait, and then we also do different
Qualitative testing and
Yeah.
quantitative testing, and it's just a really nice way, not only for us to, because of course, as we said, we did dive into this in the deep water when we first started doing this work. So we really wanted to learn by doing, and we were so lucky that somebody prompted us to put an intervention protocol study alongside this 15 years of work. So it was tried and tested. We could measure along the way what was working, what wasn't, and these initial conversations we have with them, the watching them walk, and to have these discussions of what are your biggest challenges. We work a lot with goal setting, because of course if somebody after a life-changing accident feels lost in the world, the first thing they need is purpose. The first thing they need is hope. And how do you help someone create purpose?
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. So that kind of answered question 1. So why I'm prying even further, guys, is there's so much that goes into trauma and stress, right? I mean, I'm asking you, what's the first thing you see and look at? And you're probably thinking, Meg, it depends on the client, right? And I get that. But what you just said there was so important is, well, maybe we're figuring out if this person has goals, has hopes. If we go back to behavioral theories, if someone doesn't even think that feeling better is possible, how are they going to commit? I also have to pause and point out something that I'm hearing, which I want everybody else to hear, is research is done not to prove yourself right, it's to learn. And I love that you two are doing that. I joke, my research is I make my work Swiss cheese. I'm trying to poke holes in it. I'm always trying to learn more. So thank you for being part of that learning process. And I'm excited to hear, probably not in this discussion, but in more discussions, to hear more about what you've learned and the research. So before I go to question 2, say more about that building hope and goals. Whether it be a big goal or a small goal. I feel like this is important. Would you agree?
Absolutely. We were actually just yesterday commenting, we were reading the Diane Lee foreword of the book, and she's talking very much about this goal setting, these very specific goals, and this is really the way forward for many people if they don't find that purpose. So we really sit down, and it can be the most mundane goals to begin with. Maybe somebody who's lost a leg wants to be able to go down the stairs and do the laundry, and that's where we're starting, on stairs.
It's huge.
And
huge.
Yeah,
It could even be a goal that you would never think of, where we had a soldier who'd lost both his legs and used crutches, and he said, well, I'd like to learn to zip up my jacket outside when I'm cold without losing my crutches. So he had to find a way to balance and to be able to put the crutches somewhere and zip up the jacket. And I thought, how simple is that? I would never have thought that as a goal.
You just made me think of, I still laugh at it because she's still a client of mine today. a young woman who has cerebral palsy. Another British export in the States. She's one of my clients, works at the UN. She's fabulously interesting. CP is the least interesting thing about her, but I used to see her on Tuesdays, and it was always raining in New York City. And I looked at her because she walks with the 2 crutches, and I said to her, I go, hey, what do you do in the rain? Like half kidding, but like I was really curious. And you know what she said to me? I get wet, Meghann. And I said, okay, that's a problem. Is that something you want to work on? And she's like, yeah, it would be nice. My hair looks a mess. And it was just something I never thought of. She can't hold an umbrella. And thank you for bringing that to my attention and everybody's attention, because sometimes we think we have these big, extravagant goals. And sometimes I have goals as just getting one thing accomplished today.
Exactly.
I think we all have bad days, don't we? I joke my
Absolutely.
goal is when I'm having a bad day, a little depressed, a little anxious, all the things, is just do 1 load of laundry. You did one thing today, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
how about we all commit to making the smallest goal possible for ourselves? Everybody right now who's listening, we'll all take a pause, set a goal up for yourself today and make it small.
Exactly.
I love
And
it.
it's those
So
small,
I'm going to,
yeah, it's those,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, it's those small successes that build the confidence back to being a whole person again. Never underestimate what there isn't, everyone has their own wishes, their own hopes, and all we can do is support that journey. That's kind of our job, to support that journey and to help them see the successes.
I mean,
I love that, supporting the journey. And go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, most of the people that we see come from their primary rehab and at the hospital. And at that point, they've kind of been declared stationary, which is a word that's often used here as the patient can no longer progress. And so at that point, they've
Limiting
often
beliefs.
lost-
That's my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, so they've lost their hope in a way, and we're the sort of the next step, right? Is there something that we perhaps could do? And often, if it comes to like a prosthetic, they can walk, but it's not. Can they walk better, right? Can you improve that gait? Can you improve their daily function? Can you improve their whole well-being and their quality of life? And so I really think it is a big task, because they come from that they feel like there is no more hope. And that's a big task to lift that.
Yeah, and what's
slowly.
interesting, that's a problem I see in U.S. healthcare. I'm sorry, it's also a problem in Danish healthcare. I think I say this constantly, stop setting limiting beliefs for people. I don't want my clients just walking again. I want them walking. I want this to be a chapter in their story, not the whole story. So I'm just, on behalf of the Danish people, the American people, I'm going to talk about resources for other countries to help their military. But thank you for your work. So I'm going to jump to question 2, which is going to combine both of your worlds. Now, I'm not a dancer. I did dance as a kid. But if you watched me move, you would never confuse me with a ballerina, just to be clear. But I do know a little bit about the dance world because of working in Pilates. And what's interesting to me is Pilates and military. Team versus individual. The military, it's all about the greater good and working as a team. There's not one hero. Where sometimes in ballet and other sports like tennis individual, it can be very individualized. So what lessons do you think your work in the military can better inform the ballet, the Pilates, the tennis world, the individualized sports?
I would sort of, to begin with, turn it around, because when we initially began with the soldiers, I think many thought, well, what can you as ballet dancers bring to the soldiers, right?
Love it.
And yeah, that was sort of, and I mean, it did begin with that we went into the hospital and offered our services, right? It was voluntary work. And I think they were a little skeptical. They like looked at us.
A little skeptical.
Yeah, and they
They
were
were
like,
very skeptical.
they thought Pilates was something like ladies and a ball, right? And so
Fair. That's fair,
two,
right?
yeah, two soldiers decided to join, and because they had nothing to lose, was what they said. And I think that I think it soon changed that actually the worlds are quite similar. The ballet world and the military world, we're both used to working hard. Having discipline is a big thing in the ballet world, the classical ballet world, and also in the military world. And we like to work. We like to use our bodies, and it's sort of also a very closed world. The ballet world's very closed, and sometimes I find even a little bit out of touch with reality. And in a way, military is also very closed, right? And it's very own sphere. And so I think we actually connected very well.
We actually, when we began our voluntary work, we didn't have any money, so we were borrowing the gym at the theatre. So we were going to the hospital, picking up the guys, wheelchairs in the back, off to the theatre. Up we go to the gym, and there would be often dancers still hanging out with their feet in buckets of ice because they had blisters, and in come these guys with no legs, and it was this two worlds kind of meeting with this weird respect for each other of just like suddenly the feet came out the ice water, and sort of should we go, should we stay, and but quite quickly we were very fascinated by each other, and that is where we really met on a physical front, because we just got down on the floor and started working the hell out of them, and then they were like almost laughing at the beginning, and then they get down there and be like, oh my god, this is really hard, and they start sweating, and we so it was so interesting.
And I love that, because ballet, I think dancers, to me, I think full on athletes there, right? It's so hard. And I love how you flipped the question around. I asked the question hoping you would not flip the question around. And I didn't want it, not that it felt like it needed to defend the the ballet community, but I love how you were like, yeah, well, I think there was a great marriage there. So I love the nuance. And also imagine those soldiers seeing those feet come out of that ice bucket and seeing how I've seen some professional dancers' feet. They look very painful. Would that be a good way to describe that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I love how you then kind of brought it together and brought that community of military and getting the dancers and the military together and finding common ground rather than us versus them.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? I feel like we could use a little bit more of that in this world across the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
And did a lot of the ballet dancers want to get more involved, or vice versa?
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, a bit of a sidetrack, but there ended up being a whole performance created at the Royal Danish Ballet that involved three of our wounded warriors that we were working with. Actually brought them, created a production with us telling their story through movement. And they were part of the performance as well. So it was quite so many things have been born from this work. It's quite crazy, and it was such a privilege to be part of that performance. A very separate thing, obviously on the side, but interesting.
No, it's amazing.
But it's fun. Yeah.
I'm going to let this go in a different direction. What I love that you pointed out as well is we started out with nothing. We kind of had to convince people, and I laugh, same with the Neuro Studio in the beginning. People always see the final product and the success and not know how much free sweat equity was put into that. So I'm going to completely change question 3 based off what we're talking about. Is your work is very powerful. Your work is helping a lot of people. And I know a lot of people in the movement industry are trying to find a niche that that lights them up and they really love, right? And my initial question was going to be about collaboration versus competition, which we'll talk about. But here's this thing. They might say, well, Jojo and Jessie are already doing this. how can you give some advice on teachers maybe in, France or in the US who were like, I want to help our military? Any advice on how to get started, and share the ugly, the hard too? How would someone get started maybe?
I think it's also very probably different from country to country, as I know that building that bridge into either the medical world as a Pilates teacher or a military world is certainly not an easy one. And I think when we think back, it was a little bit by chance, and that we met a doctor at the hospital when we offered our services, who was a little skeptic at first, but still open, and which was your famous line, Jojo, right? What did you say to the doctor?
Oh, you got to share the line now. What's the line?
Yeah. Well, I gave a whole spiel beforehand about the wonders of Pilates and what it can do. But when I felt like I was kind of losing him a bit, and I remember he turned his screen around and showed me and showed us some very gruesome images of legs being amputated and this, that, and the other. And we were trying to find some common ground. And then I just said, at the end of the day, even if we get the guys out of this hospital environment and into the theatre to see some hot chicks in tight clothing, what can go wrong? Put a smile on their face at least. And
well, you met them where they're at. I love that. It's sometimes, guys, trying to convince people what you do is, hold on, what do we have in common? And I always say this to my mentees, is we're solving a problem. Don't give them all the background and stuff like that. How am I going to solve a problem? These guys, men and women, need help. They need hope. Maybe they need to look at a hot chick or man to motivate them. Whatever it takes, you guys did it. And keep asking people until they say yes. So, Jessie, I thought you were going to go and it was a bit of luck, and I was going to say, don't you minimize your hard work. I won't allow it, right? But it's chance, right?
It was a lot to do with chance.
There is chance.
Yeah. But there's also...
But not taking no for an answer. If that doctor said no, you would have asked someone else, right?
Exactly. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And that would be what I'd say to other movement teachers that want to get into this. It's about passion. It's about wanting to help people. And it's about daring to dive in. We didn't know what we were doing in the beginning. We had a good foundation that we'd learned through our education and working with the everyday clients. We didn't know anything about amputees or about multiple traumatic injuries. Nothing. I remember our first session on the reformer, one of the soldiers' legs got caught in the springs, and we were on our hands and knees looking at each other going, what the fuck? But but you figure it out. And if there's a will, there's a way. And I think, as you know from your work, when you're working with people, that it's more than just the movement side of things. It's helping people transform their lives and assisting them to find these kind of resets, to find these grounding kits to move forward, and being part of that journey, investing in that journey. And really, everyone we've met through the work that we've done, we all meet on a level of passion, is what I would say. Is that you have to have that drive, because if you're doing 4 years, 5 years of voluntary work, if there's no drive there, you're going to give up after if it's all about.
So passion number one, a hunger to learn, and not taking no for an answer.
There you go.
and curiosity, being curious.
That's it.
We were curious.
Do you guys? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we were curious about. For me, I was really curious about how it would be to use Pilates and bring it back to its origins for soldiers, and I really was curious, because it wasn't really at that point used that much for soldiers. Certainly in the States it has been used, and also in Israel. But
we had this wonderful collaboration through our eagerness to learn, our curiosity, that through Elizabeth Larkham, we started to collaborate with San Diego Navy Hospital, and in Tel Aviv with Hadar Schwartz, with at the Disabled Veteran Organization, learning, sharing. So
it's really about reaching out. You've got to be curious. You've got to reach out. And like you say, if that door doesn't open, is there another door? And sometimes that's the way in. And then it's sort of like a bit like a ball that then starts rolling, because there's also karma in it, right? You're sending out that energy, you're sending out that good karma. You really want to do that. You want to help. You're curious, you want to do the work. And I think that also attracts good people in the end, other good people who want to also help and do the work.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys know this. I apologize to my audience if they've heard the story 20 times, because it's a question I often get asked in podcasts. But my first MS client, a physical therapist, called me. Do you work with MS? And at 24 years old, I was like, yeah, of course I work with MS. And then I had to Google, what is MS? I'm now 43. Again, created protocols, done all the study and the research, but it started out with just being curious. And I share that with you guys because just because you don't know anything right now doesn't mean you can't continue to learn. And I didn't know that about Jojo and Jessie as well. So don't be afraid of trying things and admitting what you don't know and what you do know, because we all don't know a lot more than we do know, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And have some damn fun along the way. Losing a limb, being through a traumatic accident or situation. And trauma looks different for everybody. You know, sometimes we think big military explosions. Sometimes it could be just a diagnosis, which we deal with a lot. It's very traumatic. So the third question was, again, to be how to foster collaboration over competition. And I loved it because my business partner is Mariska. So I sometimes say M&M, and now you guys are J&J. And
I love it.
Any advice on, listen, Mariska and I have been partners since, I think, fully in 2013, 2014, but we've been working together longer. We agree a lot, we disagree a lot, but we communicate. I love seeing other female groups, male, female, whatever. I just love seeing female collaboration, especially. How'd you guys get together?
Oh, we have a long history going back through being ballet dancers that started probably when I was 16 or something. I was in the school, she was in the company in England. You went to Hamburg, I was in Berlin with the Berlin Ballet, and then we were actually colleagues in the Royal Danish Ballet for many years, only knowing each other in that way. And Jessie went on into opening the first Pilates and gyrotonic studio in Denmark, and it wasn't until I started to do my education,
Pilates education,
yes, once I retired from the theatre, or during my last years as a dancer, that then this project fell on our lap. And this is really the crossroads moment where we came together, because I've felt very out of my depth when I was originally the one that was approached about going to the hospital, and I was like shitting my pants. I'm like, this is not, I'm terrified. So I asked Jessie if she would be my advisor or would at least come with me to the hospital, because she was very busy. She was writing a book, she had small kids, and I thought, oh, please, will you come with me? And it was that moment standing at the hospital meeting these young guys where we were like, there is no way we're not doing this. We're jumping in, we're doing it. So
it was a real pivotal moment. You know how you look back and you know there's that moment when suddenly your life takes another path, and that was that day. I remember we came out, I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was that moment of like being very hit by seeing these young men who had missing limbs, and they were 21, and I have sons, and it was very emotional. And I just remember said, Jojo, I don't know where we're going, what we're going to do with this, but I'm in, and we'll do this in whatever way. And I don't think if we had even considered all the many bumps that we have had along the road, right, which is 15 years now.
Probably good we didn't.
The bumps make it fun. The bumps make us better, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny. I had a student once think about joining our NeuroStudio mentorship, and he said to me, I'm worried. I tend to get excited about things, but I sometimes have trouble following through, and I feel like I don't finish things all the time. And I said, I know. Same. I said the NeuroStudio is the first project that felt like this is it. Where every other project, I don't know about you, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this for now, and always looking for the next step and finding your passion and what I call your zone of genius. Guys, don't give up until you find it. Some people never find it in their lifetime. I was lucky to find it at 26. I'm not going to ask your age because I think that might be rude. I don't know. But when we find it, we find it. And I just want to encourage all the teachers, if you're not loving what you're doing, but there's something you want to go do it, right?
Absolutely. Life is too short.
Oh my
Yeah, and I
God.
think
And
there's so many
working with
courses
people.
out there. There's so many
ahead.
courses out there that could be investigated. I mean, whatever that you as a teacher might find interesting, investigate it. We have also an in-house education here, and I always say to the students, now you have the basis, and if there's anything particular that you really, it could be, Pilates for breast cancer or blind people, or it can be there's so many causes that could really benefit from what Pilates has to offer.
I love that. We have a group of our level 3 teachers right now are really embarking on bringing these neuro techniques that provide safety and stuff to the dance community. And they post some things on social media, and it's so beautiful to watch them move because they're such beautiful movers. But the thing that always comes back to me is they say, I wish I knew this when I was a dancer. And I remind them, I go, yeah, but look at the bigger effect you're going to have. So I love that you guys are encouraging your students, take this and do what you want. Mm-hmm. Any other cool interests you guys are looking at? Are you kind of staying with this kind of military amputee, or are you looking at other things that are getting you excited these days?
It's important to know that through the work with the Danish Wounded Warriors project, we're using the same, let's say, our experience and the movement vocabulary that we built up with civilians. So it's by no means that we only work with amputees or soldiers. I mean, now actually it's mostly traffic accidents and fall injuries and many different kind of multi-traumatic injuries. So we're using our experience now from what we've learned through the project.
Also we've, I think through this many years of working, we did fundraising to get the Danish Wounded Warriors project up and running. We did that for years, and then we started to kind of, we'll take one more person, one more funding, one more this, and then we got to a point where okay, we need to how can we help more people? So actually, I'd say our new venture is that we've built a new company, which we've named Being Able, which is sort of a double-legged branch, so that we're continuing to work with people with multiple traumatic injuries, but we're also starting to build slowly an education so that we can teach other instructors to do this work, because one more person isn't going to make big ripples in the ocean. But if we can start to educate other instructors to go out that have a passion, that want to do this work to some level, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same as what we're doing, but hoping to sort of share the love in that sense of we've been so fortunate to have these incredible, that's the one thing working with non-profit organizations. People want to give, we've had Elizabeth Larkham here, we've had Karen Clippinger, we've had Marie Hodote Broom, we've had Alan Herdman, we've had these amazing people come and give their resources and work with our participants to have this whole bag of knowledge and experience. And we're trying to sort through that bag and start to really be able to create a methodology that we can teach to other people and share the work in that way. So that's taking up quite a lot of our time right now.
And also
beautiful. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, making the voluntary work a sustainable business, right? So there's
sure.
one thing with voluntary work, right? You can also get burnout because you're just giving so much time on top of trying to make ends meet as a instructor or studio owner or whatever you're doing, right? And it's there's only so much you can do at the end of the day, right? You also have to take care of yourself. So it feels like a good time to really build a sustainable business.
Now we're in our early 50s. There you go. I said it.
Yeah.
There you go. Love it. You look good. Not a day over 35. But that's important. And that's something that I need the teachers, whether you're a PT, whether you're a person who's living post-traumatic accident or amputation, is you're allowed to help people and have a sustainable business. You know, it's something that took us for years to develop with the Neuro Studio. And I still see clients all the time, but our efforts are to educate other teachers because it has a broader reach. I can't help everybody, right? So I love that you guys are doing that. So there's a lot of resources for you guys. I didn't want this podcast to be about things to do for trauma and stress because I feel like these ladies can offer so much more information. Obviously, they are there to teach you the techniques that they use, number one. But if this is something you want to get off the ground or work with a population or stuff like that, is again, in the show notes will be resources how you can connect to Jessie and Jojo to learn more about their work, maybe get some advice on theirs. And I'm going to ask my audience to respect their time and expertise. Pay them for their time and expertise. If you want to build what they do, you know, because that's kind of the thing is we can ask questions, we can want to help, but we want to respect the time and energy you've put into this. And the second point I just want to summarize for the audience is we're all humans. We all need safety. We all have little traumatic things, big traumatic things. So don't just think, well, I only have one client who's had a traumatic accident. Maybe that training's not for me. This training, like I say with the Neuro Studio, it's like everybody's a neuro client. We all have a brain. So think about how these strategies can work for everybody. So thank you guys for being here, for your work. You're contributing to this book. And teachers, reach out to them. Tag each other in your posts because, again, the other reason why I wanted to have Jojo and Jessie on is why question 2 and 3. I've been trying to ask all these teachers, how can we get more collaboration and less competition in the movement industry? How can we light each other up? Your success doesn't diminish mine. It only elevates us all. So I appreciate you guys being part of the solution.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll end on give me your favorite Danish dessert. What are the Danish known for?
I will say it in Danish because it's a tongue twister, and every non-Danish person that comes here has to learn it. So it's called rødgrød med fløde.
Okay, I am terrible at pronunciation, so you're going to have to say that again.
Rødgrød med fløde.
Okay, I'm not even going to try to say that, but say more.
It's basically a red berry porridge with cream.
Delicious. So that is the Danish dessert. I have a sweet tooth.
Yes, that is the Danish
all right,
dessert.
So we're all going to go to Denmark and have that dessert that I will not name.
We'll hold you to that.
Yes. Have you guys had American Oreos? Do you know the Oreo?
Oh yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, I can eat a good Oreo. Yeah.
Yes. So the Tim Tam is the Australian cookie. Have you had a Tim Tam?
Yeah, my husband's actually from New Zealand, so he lived in Australia, so he's a Tim Tam king of all things. He loves it.
But again, you know, the Oreo's a bit more processed. This Danish dessert sounds a little sounds like it has less chemicals in it than an Oreo.
Yeah, it'll put hairs on your chest, like true Viking
there
style.
You go, I love it. Well, thank you guys so much. And again, guys, check the show notes. Reach out to J&J, and I will see you on the next episode of 3 Questions.